My name is Augusto Villalon, but you can call me Toti, as most of my friends do. I am an architect. I also have another very special interest. For the past 25 years, I have been fascinated by many of our country's historical structures and landmarks, testimony to the richness of our culture and history. That is why I have become a passionate advocate of heritage conservation. I believe that if you don't preserve your past, you eventually lose your identity. I am about to embark on a journey, one that will take me back to our country's past and on to the present. In the course of my trip, I hope to rediscover those things that make our heritage not only unique, but also universally outstanding. I'd like you to join me. But first, let me tell you more about why I am undertaking this journey. In 1972, concerned about the increasing deterioration and disappearance of many of the world's natural and cultural heritage, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, adopted the World Heritage Convention, an international treaty which has now been ratified by more than 170 countries, including the Philippines. Signatories to the convention agree to do all they can using their own resources and at times with international assistance to protect their World Heritage properties and to preserve them for all time. UNESCO, through the World Heritage Committee, maintains and continually updates a list of what it considers the world's most significant natural and cultural sites that are of universal value. As of July 2003, there were more than 750 sites on the World Heritage List. 8 of these locations are to be found in the Philippines, where they form part of our patrimony. Each of these sites tells one part of the Filipino story, of how our country is blessed with an abundance of nature. They also show how the Filipino has learned to work together with nature in order to create landscapes that are a world marvel. Finally, they demonstrate how the Filipinos' creativity has blossomed into an architecture so unique that it can only be found in his country. Join me then, as I revisit and explore these Philippine World Heritage sites, which I truly believe to be a legacy not only to future generations of Filipinos, but also to the whole of humanity. I've arrived in Puerto Princesa, the capital city of the island province of Palawan. From here, I traveled to the first of our World Heritage destinations, the Tubbataha Reef's National Marine Park, located about 150 kilometers southeast in the Sulu Sea. I thought it rather fitting and symbolic that I begin my journey here. After all, science tells us that life had its origins in water. From that primordial state, life is said to have eventually evolved into more spectacular and highly complex forms, amidst a marine environment so pristine that it can only be found in very few places on our planet today. The Tubbataha Reefs is one such place. Designated as a World Heritage Site in 1993, the Tubbataha Reefs consists of two coral atolls which are separated by an 8-kilometer channel. The larger North Reef is about 16 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. Its most noticeable landmark is the Ranger Station, from which a combined group of Philippine military personnel periodically conducts patrols within the park and monitors illegal entries into the area. Located north of the Ranger Station is Bird Islet, a nesting place for birds and marine turtles, some of which are globally threatened. The population of boobies, noddies, and terns in the area is speculated to be the largest assemblage of birds in the Sulu Sea. The South Reef is about 5 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. A lighthouse marks this spot, and the Delsan boat wreck nearby provides another visible reference point for boats entering the area. The Tubbataha Reefs and its surrounding waters cover an approximate area of 33,200 hectares. It is the country's largest marine habitat, and while not as large compared to Australia's Great Barrier Reef, marine biologists believe that Tubbataha's underwater gardens harbor a diversity of life that would match or even surpass reefs of the same size in any part of the world.
In terms of biodiversity, the Philippines is at the top of the mountain. It is, along with Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, the most diverse place in the entire world in the coral reefs. And so that's a treasure that the Philippines has.
At least 372 species of corals have been identified in the reefs, representing 86% of all coral species found in the Philippines. At least 6 species of marine mammals roam its clear blue waters. The marine wilderness of Tubbataha is also a food basket containing more than 400 species of fish, from decorative aquarium fish to highly prized commercial species. But while fishing is strictly prohibited in the park, Tubbataha's contribution to the country's marine resources remains enormous.
Tubbataha contributes a lot to the fisheries of Palawan and the Sulu Sea, and this is believed to be the source of larvae for the eastern Palawan and other Sulu Sea islands. So it is unique in that it will ensure the food security of future Filipinos if it is kept in the condition that it is found now.
Because of the unspoiled beauty of its environment, Tubbataha has also become one of the world's premier diving destinations.
The first dive is good impression for us. I watched the whale shark here and the very beautiful underwater. The many kind of fishes, very easy take photo.
As I watched one of Tubbataha's many unforgettable sunsets, I couldn't help but feel that if paradise were to ever exist in the middle of the ocean, Tubbataha would probably resemble it. Yet, I was also filled with a sense of sadness, for just as paradise was lost, I wondered whether Tubbataha would also. I've returned to Puerto Princesa for the next part of my journey, an 80-kilometer overland trip to the western side of Palawan, where the second of our World Heritage Sites is located. Approaching the Puerto Princesa Subterranean River National Park, you almost feel as if you are about to enter a world lost in time. It's the same feel you get when you first see Tubbataha, only this time your feet are firmly planted on land. It may not exactly be Jurassic Park, but it certainly comes close, despite the fact that the creatures here are definitely more benign. To better appreciate the park's unique geological features, I've arranged to interview Dr. Jose Antonio Socrates, a well-respected authority in his field.
And here we have a magnificent limestone rock formation that has been carved into a karst topography with a unique underground river system close to the sea, where the jungle goes all the way to the beach. And in some places there, you're on the other side of the karst, and you face the karst, you see a view of colossal magnificence.
Dr. Socrates further explained that about 30 million years ago, a shallow tropical sea covered the area where the park is now situated. Over time, thick layers of mud and the shells of billions of tiny sea creatures gradually built up and hardened to become limestone. The limestone was in turn slowly dissolved by rain and groundwater on and under its surface. This created bizarre and unusual formations which presently characterize the park's remarkable and unique topography. In geology, this is known as karst.
Karst is the name of a town in the former Yugoslavia, which is surrounded by limestone formations.
Beneath majestic Mount St. Paul, the hills, valleys, flatlands, and coastal areas of the park also sustain a wide array of ecosystems. These were described to me by Janie Baldera, a dedicated environmentalist who has conducted an extensive survey of the park.
It actually represents almost all of the forest types found in the Far East, like beech forest, mangrove forest, lowland evergreen forest, montane forest, and forest on ultra basic rocks or soils. So basically, it already has representative of a diversity of habitats.
Also notable among the park's ecosystems is the mangrove forest, which is reputed to be the most well-preserved in the entire country. I've also learned that there are at least 149 different vertebrates to be found in the park, 1/3 of which are endemic to Palawan. This simply means that they exist nowhere else on Earth. Equally rich and diverse is the plant life, where some 280 different trees thrive in the various forest habitats. It was precisely because of its unique geological features and globally significant biodiversity that the 22,000-hectare Puerto Princesa Subterranean River National Park was inscribed as a World Heritage Site in 1999. The park's centerpiece is undoubtedly its renowned 8.2-kilometer underground river, which is considered to be the longest one of its kind in the world. Another distinguishing feature of the river is that it emerges directly into the sea. Once inside, you cannot help but be fascinated by the numerous multi-shaped formations of the cave. The two most common are the stalactites, which hang down from the ceiling, and the stalagmites, which form on the cave floor. The most noticeable inhabitants of this amazing underworld are the swiftlets, who roost deep in the crevices of the cave, and the more than 47,000 bats, which hang upside down from the countless number of stalactites during daytime.
The park is, as inscribed by UNESCO, is our heritage. It's God's gift to Palawan.
I couldn't agree with Dr. Socrates more, but I wanted to add that for me, the Puerto Princesa Subterranean River National Park is a treasure which also belongs to the entire country and as a World Heritage Site to the whole world. From Palawan, I head north to the mountains of the Cordillera region, where centuries ago, a fiercely proud and independent people known as the Ifugao created one of the world's truly outstanding achievements. Covering an area of 20,000 square kilometers and stretching across 5 provinces, the Rice Terraces of the Philippine Cordilleras was inscribed by UNESCO on its World Heritage List in 1995. Aerial photographs clearly reveal the colossal magnitude of the Rice Terraces and why they are widely believed to be the most extensive rice terraces system in the world. There is a sense of tranquility and quiet strength that you immediately feel once you are here. There is also that sense of national pride in knowing that the most outstanding monument of our country is one that is not a symbol of civic or religious authority, or one that commemorates a battle or a victory against oppression. For me, the Rice Terraces celebrate something more: the genius and soul of a people. These were our forefathers who developed an entire system of cultural, agricultural, engineering, and environmental practices to grow rice, our principal food. According to some anthropologists, this involved centuries of hard physical labor, following an ingenious method of carving terraces into the steep mountainsides using only the most basic tools.
Because they used water in order to build the terraces. What they do is build a wall, then dam a stream upstream, hold the water there. Then when they're ready to fill in the wall, they release the water and just spade the soil into that's brought by the water into the wall. So it takes brains to move the soil and make the water do the work for them. And that's really a great knowledge of engineering.
Water. It is life for the terraces. It is because of water that the Ifugao considers forests as a most valuable resource. At the top of each terrace cluster is a ring of forest called the Muyong. Trees of the Muyong begin the water cycle by gathering moisture. The water from the roots eventually feeds into streams that are then diverted to irrigate the terraces. Water flows downhill from terrace to terrace through a well-engineered system of sluices and bamboo pipes. This traditional system is so sophisticated, yet totally sustainable. Conservationists and ecologists rank the terraces among the best soil and water conservation structures ever built by human communities. Up to this day, the Ifugaos continue the same time-tested traditional practices which their ancestors adopted in order to maintain the terraces. Because of this long and harmonious interaction between man and nature, UNESCO has cited the Rice Terraces as a living cultural landscape. But the origins of the Ifugao and why they built monumental landscapes on such difficult terrain remain shrouded in myth and conjecture. To shed more light on this, I asked Mr. Manuel Dulawan to tell me about early Ifugao beliefs, as well as his views concerning the Rice Terraces.
That the construction of the first Rice Terraces, according to Ifugao myth, was taught by the deity Dinipan of Tahaadan to the hunter brothers Kabigat and Balituk, the sons of Tadona and Inuke of Kiyangan. They were able to construct such structures that withstood earthquakes, typhoons, and other natural elements.
Dr. Jesus Peralta offers a more historical and sociological explanation.
By 6000 BC, there is a movement of peoples from the coastal areas of Southeast Asia. Some moved by boats into the islands, and these people are known as the Austronesians. And they are the ones who brought agriculture into the Philippines. So it's probable that the Ifugao came from these people coming from the staging area in Southeast Asia. Really, it's movements of people. If you study the terraces, the older terraces are down below. So it's really movement up because you cannot build a terrace without water. So you have to start moving up to get the water.
For the Ifugao, daily life, cultural practices, religious beliefs, and even literature have always revolved around rice. Rituals and ceremonies performed by mumbakis, or holy men, mark each stage of the agricultural cycle.
The Ifugao before sincerely believed that when they perform such rites, the gods or the deities and ancestral spirits had intervened in their pleas, in their pleadings to ensure the productivity of the rice culture.
The strain of rice that grows in the terraces is special. Cordillera rice grows waist high, so that it can be harvested while standing. Harvesting is done while chanting the traditional hudhud, which has been honored by UNESCO as one of the world's masterpieces of oral and intangible heritage of humanity. Visiting the Rice Terraces has made me touch roots, my own and that of my nation. I live secure in the thought that others feel as I do.
When we are faced with all of these problems of our society, and they always say that the Filipinos has a damaged culture, we don't know where we're heading. I always believe, I subscribe to the principle that we have to look back into our history and gain the lessons, from the travails of the original Filipinos. And the Rice Terraces is a sterling example on how communities can be maximized, can be galvanized towards creating masterpieces.
Continuing our journey from the Cordilleras, we head towards the western coast of northern Luzon. As we do, we also come closer to our present, to a place which symbolizes the first colonization of the Philippines. It was in 1572 that the Spanish conquistador Juan de Salcedo founded Villa Fernandina, which was then located on an island in the Abra River Delta. How Villa Fernandina eventually became Vigan has been subject to some curious speculation. According to local folklore, Vigan got its name from the bigaa plant, which used to grow abundantly along the riverbanks. On the other hand, Chinese chronicles tell of the gold which used to wash down from the mountains to the seacoast, creating a wonderful sight for pre-colonial Chinese sea merchants. Vigan, when written in Chinese characters, means beautiful shore. Whatever the true origins of its name, Vigan throughout its colorful past continued to mirror a strong Chinese influence. Aside from becoming the religious center of the region, Vigan during the 18th and 19th centuries was also the leading trading hub in the Philippine North, ranking third in size, political power, and economic significance after Cebu and Manila. The Mestizo River was central to the development of Vigan's economy. Seagoing ships, which berthed at its delta, carried goods directly from China. As a maritime center, Vigan also participated in the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade by supplying the thick hand-woven cloth used as sails for the galleons. It is therefore not surprising that the architecture and urban layout of Vigan reflect the foreign influences brought about by its former trade connections with China, Mexico, and Spain. And early in the 20th century, America likewise stamped its imprint on the city. Today, Vigan is the only place in the country that has retained most of its colonial architecture. When it was inscribed as a World Heritage Site in 1999, UNESCO cited Vigan as the best preserved example of a planned Spanish colonial town in Asia. The architecture of the typical Vigan house is derived from the traditional Bahay Kubo or Bahay na Nipa. The much larger Bahay na Bato or stone house found in the Mestizo district of Vigan is of 2 stories solidly enclosed with stone walls on the ground level for protection. The second level is constructed completely out of wood. Its roof, covered with terracotta tiles, is steeply pitched and sometimes flares out at the eaves, again reminding us of Chinese influence. The exterior walls of the family quarters on the second level are enclosed with sliding window panels made out of kapis shells. Upon sliding the panels open, the family quarters freely admit the air and sky. I was fortunate to be joined on this trip by Dr. Fernando Cialcita, an anthropologist and fellow conservationist, whose insights on Vigan have always aroused interest.
It is Filipino urban architecture at its very best. It's also town planning at a very productive and very rational level. And also, I like the fact that Vigan combines cultural traditions together. There are innovations in these houses which are very Pinoy, like having, for example, the ventanilla, which is not found in Spain. The whole idea that you don't need too many bedrooms because you can use even the sala as your sleeping room at night. You just lay out the mat. That's very Pinoy.
I've always felt at home in Vigan, not only because I'm an architect, but also because Vigan's architecture relates the story of the Filipino and of how his constant exposure to foreign influences has endowed him with the ability to adapt foreign ideas and combine them into a style uniquely his own. This trait of adaptability can be seen further in 4 magnificent structures which have been grouped together by UNESCO in its World Heritage List since 1993. The final part of our journey takes us to these sites, the baroque churches of the Philippines. At the beginning of the Spanish colonial period, the mandate given to the friars by the king was simply to Christianize and educate the natives. But in order to do so, these hardy evangelists also had to provide places of worship. The early Spanish friars, however, were men of God and not architects. In giving instructions for the building of these churches, they could only rely on the memories of similar structures they had seen in Europe and in Latin America, where the Baroque style was then hugely popular. Unintentionally, therefore, these friars and their highly skilled and creative local craftsmen reinterpreted the European Baroque style and thereby established an architecture deceptively Western in appearance but totally Filipino in spirit and context. The charm of each of these 4 churches is in the architectural exuberance, the panache in which Western and Eastern styles combine, and how they clearly demonstrate that we Filipinos did not simply accept Christianity at face value. We added our own touches. Ricky Jose, one of the country's foremost authorities on colonial church architecture, shared some of his observations about the unique design and structure of these churches.
What would make them unique is their response to the earthquakes and to the natural conditions in the country. And I think the four are some of the best examples of how Filipinos and builders in this country resolved all these problems.
The builder's primary consideration in protecting these churches from earthquakes can best be seen in Paoay's San Agustin Church. 14 S-shaped buttresses rise almost to the roofline, each one topped by a triumphant pyramidal finial. It is the most massive buttressing in any Philippine church. It is primarily for this reason that Paoay Church has been cited as the best example of a style that has come to be known as earthquake baroque. To further protect the church from intense seismic activity, the coral stone bell tower was built some distance away, a common design feature among Philippine colonial churches. The facade of Paoay Church, however, varies from the standard design. Heavier coral stone blocks occupy the upper level and finials, while in the lower portion, smaller stones were used as building material. 100 kilometers to the south lies the town of Santa Maria, where the second of our World Heritage churches is located. Unlike the traditional Spanish urban town plan that situates the church in the central plaza, the church of Nuestra Senora de la Asuncion is situated atop a hill and fortified by a stone wall. Resembling a citadel and without any adjacent structures, the church is the only example of such magnificent siting in the Philippines. A pair of exaggerated cylindrical columns frames its plain facade. Similar to the one in Paoay, the bell tower is completely detached from the main church structure. Massive and squat, it is constructed of stacked octagonal shapes of decreasing diameter and crowned by a small dome, thus evoking a Chinese pagoda. Built of brick, the church has thick lateral walls with no ornamentation except for the delicately carved side entrances. These are bolstered regularly by huge quadrangular buttresses, which serve as the usual protection against earthquakes. Also standing on its town's highest elevation is the Church of Santo Tomas de Villanueva. It is considered as a classic example of a church style known as Fortress Baroque. Miag-ao's massive pair of bell towers were on a permanent lookout for Muslim invaders. The squatness of the church and angled buttresses further strengthened its fortress image. The church's facade is a masterpiece. Filipino stone carvers filled its entire surface with tassels, vines, tendrils, swags, and festoons in wild abandon. The facade's central element is St. Christopher, clad like a Filipino with rolled-up trousers. Carrying the Christ child on his back, he holds on to a lush coconut tree for support. Beside him are guava and papaya trees. Clearly derivative of the Baroque style but totally folk in execution, Santo Tomas de Villanueva sums up the Filipino transfiguration of Western decorative elements. Back in Manila, I visit the oldest stone church in the country and the only one in Intramuros to have survived the ravages of World War II. Originally built of bamboo and nipa, San Agustin Church was eventually constructed using stone blocks in 1587 after repeated destruction by fire and earthquake. 300 years later, its left bell tower cracked during another earthquake and was permanently demolished for safety reasons. Still, the structural design of the church remains extraordinarily sound. It is said that the structure is supported by a raft-type foundation that permits the entire church to sway during earthquakes. Thick walls in between the small chapels lining each side of the nave act as buttresses, They were integrated into the church's interior because of the limited space within the walled city. All built of stone, a barrel vault, dome, and arch vestibules support the choir loft. No other construction of this type can be seen in the Philippines. The interior of San Agustin Church is superb. The existing trompe-l'œil painting, done in the late 19th century, was the influence for the interior paintings of many Philippine churches. Within the church and its adjoining monastery, you can find a priceless collection of religious art.
Our church heritage is an important means for understanding the faith. It's like the new evangelization. So if we are able to interpret all these old churches, the statuary, to get the meanings out of this, we understand them better, and then we also understand our faith better.